Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. This is the Group of Five Deep Dive for Championship Week. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by my Action Network co-host Duck. And instead of sounding off, can we just bask for a moment, just for 1 second, in the beauty of the fact that we could have not one, but two G5 teams in the college football playoff? You hear that, Will Compton, and all you Power 4 gatekeepers trying to keep our G5 Cinderellas out of the dance. No disrespect, Duck. I know that you have a 200-1 Virginia future that you would love to cash, but we are on the precipice of some crazy things happening. When they expanded the college football playoff, it was really, throwing the G5 a bone. But now here we are with an opportunity to get two teams in. It's going to require James Madison win. It's going to require a Duke win. But at this point, I got to say, I'm thrilled. For a season that started off in September, there wasn't a lot of upsets. The G5 weren't scoring a lot of points in terms of beating those Power 4 teams. But now they're positioned. You can say whatever you want. Maybe they're backing their way in. Maybe it's just, a testament to the ACC being so watered down. I don't care. If we get two of them in, I'll be thrilled. What are your thoughts, Duck? I know that you have a lot riding on the Wahoos cashing that ticket and going down as the ACC champs. But what are your thoughts on two G5 teams crashing the dance?
Well, what a fun story and what an up yours to the committee as well. When you have these rules that were set in place, which many people didn't understand when the season started, they kind of thought it was the four power conference champion winners and then the highest ranked group of five champion, but that's not the way the letter of the law is written. It's the top five highest rated conference champions, and that's why we're in this predicament now, because you're going to have the American winner in, and then it's going to come down to the ACC champion or possibly James Madison. But what will be really fascinating is if it does play out that way and Duke ends up winning, and I'm at home crying all next week instead of broadcasting with you. If it ends up happening that way, does the committee somehow find a way to finagle Miami in there as an at-large so the ACC doesn't get left out anyway? I think this will, if anything else, provoke some conversation about some changes with the P4 conferences and how they handle their tie-breaking scenarios and how they can somewhat position some of their stronger teams as we get into the late stages of the season next year and beyond.
Yeah, I think those are all fair points. I think the reality of the situation is as these mega conferences expanded, you were going to have teams that all of a sudden lucked in to fortuitous schedules like Texas A&M playing the bottom of the SEC, or teams that have a murderer's row and all of a sudden they're firing their coach and paying huge buyouts. That just comes with the territory. I do think in the future we're going to have these conferences splinter back out. Maybe you're going to have divisions come back once again because there's no other way to be able to balance it evenly in terms of scheduling on an annual basis. And right now we just have some teams that are potential frauds. We have teams with 3 or 4 losses that are probably a lot better than their record would indicate. So there's just something to consider. Now, before we get into the show, before we get into all of our best bets for all 5 of these G5 conference championship games, I'm going to kick it over to our man Stucky for a quick word from DraftKings.
The Big Bets on Campus podcast is sponsored by DraftKings. And in partnership with DraftKings, our listeners get a great offer right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets. That's right. New customers can turn $5 into $200 if your bet wins, paid instantly in bonus bets. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy sports and have the shot to win cash prizes. To get started, use promo code BBOC when signing up. Again, use promo code BBOC when signing up with DraftKings to get on board. The crown is yours.
Thanks, Stucky. Now, as you know, we're going to give out picks throughout the entire episode, and as you're following along, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to tail. So you're going to go ahead and find the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or simply visit actionnetwork.com/betnow. Or even better, sign up for Action Pro. Action Pro allows users to get real-time alerts as soon as experts like Stucky, Duck, Colin Wilson, and myself track picks in the app. So you want to get the best picks critically at the best prices. Also get real-time money percentages to see where the smart money is flowing, and access to our NFL player prop projections powered by Sean Kerner and his predictive analytics team. And soon, Nick Giffen will fire up his unbelievable men's basketball player prop projections. If you've been tailing him the last 2 March Madnesses, you are sleeping on a futon made of cash. The guy is the sharpest of the sharp when it comes to college basketball player props, so you want to get on board just for that. It's a great time to get on board. Let's do it right now. Fire it up. Go to actionnetwork.com/pro to get started.
Mike, let's start in the American Conference on Friday night. One of these teams has been our darling team all season in the conference. The other has been a major thorn in my ass most of the way this year. A little bit of damper put on this one with both coaching regimes being hired away to P4 jobs. We're likely going to have some amount of bandwidth that's been taken away from their teams the last week or so since they've been hired away. But I'm excited here to see how this one plays out. Can North Texas and that high-flying offense that leads the country have success here against the best pass rush in the American Conference? Or will the Tulane turnover voodoo continue? Can the North Texas defense step up against the run? And can they contain what Tulane wants to do offensively, or does Retzlaff and company run wild? Can the Mean Green go into Ullman and do what no other team this season has been able to do in defeating Tulane at home? Breezy, break it down for us.
Well, my thoughts here are pretty simple. Tulane, I mean, at least on the defensive side of the ball, they've earned their keep. They are a serious team. Summerall sticking around to coach this thing out. I'm glad that we're seeing it because you've seen it at the P4 level. As soon as these guys have an opportunity, they're taking the next charter flight out of town. He's going to ride it out, same as Eric Morris. I love that from a G5 morale perspective. But I still think that this Tulane team never quite came together fully on the offensive side of the ball. I will give their defense their flowers. They held 5 AAC opponents to below 20 points. You know, they're top 30 in so many different defensive metrics. But I think there's an opportunity for this North Texas offense to crack them because of their balance. Much has been made of the Mestamaker story. I mean, I love the kid. The fact that he didn't start a varsity game in high school is just absurd. It takes that, Matt Castle story from the USC days and just doubles down on it. So in terms of him being a folk hero, it's already secured. But they don't need him to throw 50 times in this game. They got Hawkins out of the backfield. He has 16 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 games. And when it's not just, smoke and mirrors or broken plays or, a couple long touchdown runs. The fact of the matter is you look at them in line yards and rushing success, they're top 10 in both. So when you balance those things out, I really like this Eric Morris offense to find the way through this Tulane defense, whether it is playing great situational football, whether it's relying on Hawkins, or if they're down. There's not a game script or game flow that I'd be scared of. If they're down by 10 points in this game, I don't think they're drawing dead. Whereas if you look at Jake Retzlaff, he has put the ball in danger consistently. I had to go through and look at some of his turnover-worthy plays, both on tape and then in the passing charts that PFF puts together. He has 17 turnover-worthy plays this season, and you could see it in those performances when things started poorly, like that performance against UTSA. When he gets at the deep end of the pool, he starts flailing. He starts putting the ball in harm's way. He's speeding through his reads, trying to force the ball downfield. So I think from a game script, game flow perspective, if Tulane on their home field falls behind, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure that's going to slide squarely on Retzlaff's shoulders. And I don't think he's going to be able to answer the bell. That's my take on this game. I'm fine with the money line. I'm fine laying the 2.5 underneath that key number of 3. And also, from a live betting perspective, if the Mean Green go down early in this one, they're certainly not going to be drawing dead. I'd love to get them, catching 3.5 plus money. So I'm going to bet them pregame, and I certainly wouldn't shy away from hammering them as soon as that first score of the game is tallied, particularly if it's on the Tulane side.
Generally you're going to go broke betting against Tulane at home, but I don't think this is the same Tulane team that we've come to know and love over the last 3 to 4 years. And despite UNT's run defensive metrics, I don't think Tulane's going to go in there and run the ball on these guys. When you look at North Texas, they played Navy, Army, Rice, South Florida, several dynamic rushing offenses, and several of those teams, all they do is run the football. But a lot of those rushing yards were surrendered in the second half with the games already decided. North Texas was rotating in the second platoon and second team guys getting reps. I think Tulane's going to be up against it here, and if you put Tulane in situations where there are obvious passing downs and Retzlaff has to do it with his arm, I think these guys are going to be in major trouble against a legitimate North Texas defense that I think is very good. Tulane should see very little explosiveness in the pass game. And, you look at the red zone offense, 28 touchdowns and 50 trips, and North Texas's red zone defense has bowed up time and time again this year. I think we will see Tulane struggle to move the ball into the red zone, and when they do, they'll settle for field goals. I can also see a second half script where if North Texas does have the lead, maybe they take the octane off a little bit here and try and salt the fourth quarter away, use that run game to control the clock, play some keep away, which is something they're not accustomed to doing, but I think we'll see that here. I think this game plays to the under, and I like Tulane's team total under 32.5, which is widely available about everywhere.
Now, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, we went ahead and we got dressed up. You got to dress to the nines for championship week here in the G5. And it's kind of been a rags to riches story. I'm surprised these two teams have made it to the ball in Conference USA. As a matter of fact, if you go back and listen to the tape in the preview season, we were both not so high on Jacksonville State. We thought that they were going to be a team that struggled to find an offensive identity. The whole, kind of mix of Rich Rod and his staff leaving and then Charles Kelly coming in without that head coaching experience, what would they look like this year? It got even worse on the Kennesaw side of things. The Conference USA, by the way, they threw out the preseason poll, at least the traditional one, where they ranked the teams top to bottom. Instead, they went with a voter confidence about their likelihood of getting to bowl eligibility. I'm still not exactly sure what the hell they were doing with that. Was everyone voting 0 to 100%, or was a vote 100% to get to bowl eligibility? Anyway, in terms of that, if you look at it, they went with Jacksonville State being the third likeliest team to go ahead and get to bowl eligibility, 6 wins out of CUSA. Kennesaw, they ranked as the second lowest, 11th out of the 12 teams there in Conference USA. So let's just balance this out a little bit because both of these teams clearly had flaws, and yet they just kept winning close games throughout the entire season. You looked at Jacksonville State, I mentioned at the top, they didn't have much of an offensive identity outside of Cam Cook. And to borrow an analogy, why can't you just make the whole plane out of the black box? Why can't you just make the whole thing indestructible? Well, they built their entire offense around Cam Cook. He led the nation in rushing, he led the nation in broken tackles, and went for 1,000 yards after contact. I know no one is touching any of those Ashton Genty numbers from 2024, but he gives some of that flavor where it just looks like he refuses to go down. Particularly, he has that nose for the end zone. They make sure that they're cashing in on those drives, scoring when they get inside opponent's 10-yard line. But you have to figure that Kennesaw knows what's coming. The guy's going to get 25, 30 carries in this game. But I've had enough of betting against Cam Cook this season. I've had my fill in that regard. Now, Kennesaw, on the other side of things, they've lived on the edge with 5 one-possession wins. Jacksonville State, by the way, if you look at it, they have 5 wins by 3 points or less. So it would seem, stands to reason that you should play a close outcome in this game. In terms of the point spread right now, it's the Owls laying 2.5 with a total sitting at 59.5. There are some markets out there where you can go margin in either direction. I think it would be a pretty sharp play to go 4 points in either direction on this game. You can manually bet that out as well for exact outcomes. But I just kind of view this, if I had to play it, I can't fade Cam Cook any longer, even with Kennesaw finally getting some offensive momentum later in the year. Amari Odom, by the way, finished on an insane year. It finally all came together for the Owls quarterback. He finishes against Missouri State and Liberty. Ready for these numbers? 11 total touchdowns, 731 total yards of offense. But against this very same Jacksonville State defense, played the worst game of his career, 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. So every time I'm starting to talk myself into fading the Cox, I'm back to this has got to be a pass or a close game. What are your thoughts on this one? Do you think a conference that clearly has been drawing dead from the college football playoff perspective still has a little bit of juice, still has some entertaining football to deliver up this week? What are your thoughts in this Conference USA Championship game?
Should be very entertaining. Should be a little weather that's expected for this one. Could be some rain showers that could make the game touch and go because there could be some thunder and some lightning there. Shouldn't affect the gameplay too badly, but it is something to watch. Kennesaw should be able to throw the ball here. Both quarterbacks they've used, Williams and Amari Odom, have thrown it really well this year. Both have combined to throw for 3,000 yards. Kennesaw has found success in the pass game, accumulating the chunk plays this season, while J-State gives that up defensively, 108th defensively in surrendering explosive pass plays. Jacksonville State is also poor in pass coverage, fourth worst pass coverage unit in CUSA per PFF. When you look at the Gamecocks, they're pretty banged up at linebacker. They've got a couple linebackers out, a couple D linemen that are projected to be out for this one. This defense really could struggle here for Jacksonville State to get stops if the Kennesaw pass game is clicking. And based on what you just threw out there to us, it likely will be. Jacksonville's going to run the ball here a ton. Strong rushing team with Cam Cook and Caden Creel. The two-headed monster has been really dynamic this year on the ground. Kennesaw's giving up a ton of explosives in the run game. You look at three linebackers potentially out for the Owls in this game. Could be major trouble when Cam Cook gets to that second level. You talk about breaking tackles, gashing defenses. It could be a really long night for this Kennesaw State run stop unit here, I would imagine. Both of these offenses should be able to feast against the opposing defenses. We should see a higher scoring game. I look at the matchup earlier this season, which ended with 61 total points. Kennesaw had 579 total yards, completely shredding Jacksonville State up and down the field. They had several red zone turnovers. They missed a couple field goals. There should have been much more scoring in that game. I think they will score touchdowns here. I think both teams will cash in the red zone. I like over 59.5 in this one.
All right, let's go to the MAC. I've been hard on the MAC as well this season, but I'm a defensive guy. They got the best defensive team to the finish line here, at least with an opportunity to play for a conference title, and that's Western Michigan. They are top 30 in terms of success rate, both against the run and the pass, which puts them in a wonderful position to win a lower scoring game. This total sitting at 43 and a half. And then when you look at it, it's very difficult to beat them with a methodical drive. In terms of quality drives allowed this year, they're top 25. So you probably got to do it by popping a few big plays, and they're just so sound in their fundamentals. Now, on the other side of things, Brock Lowry, their quarterback, is not someone who's going to wow you with, the arm candy kind of throws where he's making those pro throws and pushing the ball downfield into tight windows. But he's done two things really well this year. He's run the ball in critical moments. That's situational football, picking up third and fourth downs, and also having a nose for the end zone when they get into the red zone, being able to use those quarterback runs, those quarterback powers. You get the numbers game to work, getting the hat on a hat, getting some double teams down in the red zone. He brings that to the table. And number two, he doesn't turn the ball over. Yes, he's not making those off-platform crazy throws, but he's also giving you an opportunity to win the turnover battle every single time that you play. Now, on the other side of things, Miami of Ohio preseason, the expectations and really the ceiling, I think a lot of people thought if everything went right, you got Chuck Martin, a head coach who's won in this league. You got Taquan Finn returning to the MAC, somebody who's played at a conference player of the year level. Put those two things together, what, they could win 9, 10 games? And then out of the chute, they go 0-3, including that absolute heartbreaker against UNLV. And then you fast forward, Taquan Finn just quits the team. He's going to focus on his pro future. What pro future? And now all of a sudden you got to turn to Tommy Gotkowski, who 2 full games worth of work, almost, basically a start, and he came in very quickly in the other game. He's put together some interesting tape. I don't think there's any reason to think that they have to be truly one-dimensional. But in terms of where they're trending emotionally, to lose a starting quarterback, to lose, a captain of your offense, someone who should be someone who's making the big plays when you need them, it seems like the number has not moved far enough in Western's favor. Do you agree with that? And do you think this is a potential ladder spot for a Broncos team that usually would be the opposite of something like that? Because their offense, it's like pulling teeth. You don't want to give away extra points. But the way this defense is playing and the consistency of Lowry when they get the ball into the red zone, am I crazy to think that they can win this game by double digits?
I don't think it's crazy. I have not bought into what I've seen from Miami of Ohio this season offensively. The most original, uninspiring, non-dynamic offense that you could possibly draw up. And now you're tasking a third string freshman quarterback. He did catch lightning in a bottle against Buffalo. Buffalo's played such seat-of-your pants football all season. The turnovers, the flippant nature with the ball, just not getting stops defensively. The most disappointing team in the MAC is Buffalo. He caught lightning in a bottle against them. And then, they did beat a hapless Ball State team in the last game of the regular season at home. And now you go into Ford Field in the MAC championship game and line up against this elite Western Michigan defense, and he's got to do it there under those lights? I don't think so. Western Michigan, I look at this team being vastly prepared this time around after completely blowing a game they played against Miami of Ohio earlier in the season. Their only conference loss this year. Western Michigan's defense is elite in taking away what opposing offenses want to do. They're great at making you feel uncomfortable in standard downs and in third down. I look at Western Michigan, 32nd nationally in defensive success rate, 34th against the run. The pass rush, Nadeem Tucker and Rod McCray, they are coming after you. 17 sacks between the two of them this year. Miami's going to run the ball a ton. They run the ball 61% of the time on the season, and I don't think that they're going to have to be truly one-dimensional here, but they're going to run the ball. And I don't think they're going to have a tremendous amount of explosivity on the ground. And so now you're tasking a new quarterback, a young player who hasn't had a ton of time in the seat, to have to make plays in third and medium or longer against Western Michigan. I don't think it's going to go very well. When I look at Western Michigan offensively, back-to-back games now scoring 30 points, I like the creativity I've seen out of this offense, specifically in the run game. Speaking of the ground game, they are humming 640 yards and 9 rushing scores the last 2 weeks. I would guess that Walt Bell and this Broncos offense is going to have a little bit of creativity in the dome setting. There's not going to be any weather to have to worry about. So I think they dial up a few things that they can get some creative ways to get the ball out to Talik Williams and Blake Bosma in space. Let's go back and look at that meeting couple weeks back earlier in the season between Western Michigan and Miami of Ohio. Western on the road was dominating. 17-9 through 3 quarters. Miami hadn't scored a touchdown. They had 220 total yards of offense through 3 quarters. Western had an 8-minute stretch of bad football. It went touchdown, punt, touchdown. They were kind of out of it. It was Daquan Finn who was the hero in that game. He dazzled in the fourth quarter. His heroics won Miami of Ohio that ball game. He walked out on these guys. He's not there. Everyone's looking at each other in the fourth quarter, and you're down by 8. You need to score. Daquan's not there, so now it's going to be even tougher for this offense to try to overcome adversity, which I think they'll face against Western Michigan. I think this game's going to be close. It's going to be lower scoring. I'd lean under if I had to play that, but I like Western Michigan to win this game. Go find the 1.5, or if you want to find a cheap money line, minus 120 or so. I think Western Michigan's going to win this game and claim the MAC title.
Let's turn now to the Mountain West. You're going to cover this one. This line confuses me. I don't understand where the public sentiment, maybe this is one of those pure G5 moments where the public's like, oh, Boise State, they've owned the Mountain West for years. They clearly must have the superior athletes, the superior game plan, coaching, quarterback play. That's not necessarily the case yet. Here we are, kind of solidified in the market with them laying 4 against the running Rebs, who, by the way, if they don't give up a late touchdown against New Mexico, they're an 11-win team. I know that they were, fortunate in so many instances, but this is a well-coached team. This is Dan Mullen with the right quarterback. The whole body of work is on display here. A full season of Calandria. He was able to really cut down on those dramatic turnovers and turnover-worthy plays that he had at his time at Virginia. Why is this number solidified with the Broncos laying 4? Is the wrong team favored here?
Well, it's so funny how this played out, right? You get the all the metrics that are plugged into the computer, and they run the algos, and they spit out this matchup for us again. UNLV versus Boise State. I feel the pain for New Mexico and San Diego State. It was really sad how that came down to it. Came down to computer rankings. You kind of had that thought once we kind of saw it after the games shook out on Saturday that New Mexico might end up getting screwed. And
Well,
hell of a
just
job
real quick, Duck. I mean, San Diego State, that overtime performance where they took 1, 2, 3 false starts in a row in a game with their season on the line, and then throw an uncatchable pass on their final down of the entire season.
Brutal.
Like, throw them right into the wood chipper. I understand they had a great season, but this offense was such a rough watch. My heart does not break that they're not in the conference title game. New Mexico, on the other hand, though, I mean, did anyone do a better job than Eck? If you are not voting for Eck as National Coach of the Year, then clearly you don't know ball, because this guy walked into a situation that they could have won 2 games and no one would have blinked across the country. Instead, he flipped that from the win total to the loss column and put them in a position to play for a conference championship. They got screwed by the computers, which, feels like a throwback to the BCS days, but what an incredible job. Like, people should be beating the drum for this guy to be filling, forget about a good G5 job. He should be at a quality P4 job at this point. All that being said, I don't care that the Aztecs are not there. The Lobos did get hosed, though. And they're coming off one of the swaggiest looks of the entire season. That turquoise alternate uniform. They got to find a way to wear that like every other game.
Yeah, Land of Enchantment throwbacks. Those were sharp. It's interesting we get this matchup again though, and just one where it seems like one team has the other team's number. 10 straight wins for Boise in the series. We saw this game play out 56-31 earlier this season. Maddox Madsen's going to give it a go, trying to come back from the devastating lower leg injury, which sidelined him for several games. He's only had a month worth of recovery time here. UNLV is going to run the ball. Calandria and Jet Thomas have been awesome the last 4 weeks. We should see them have success here against a Broncos stop unit that is just 125th this year against the run. So can UNLV outpossess Boise here and take advantage of the weak Boise D line? Yeah, I imagine they would have some offensive success. I wonder if the UNLV defensive improvements that we've seen over the last 4 weeks are legitimate. Does this defense have a chance to provide some resistance, or is this matchup just completely going to be destined to end up like the last several in this series, which would be another convincing Boise win? I looked into it, Breezy, but I want to hear what you think, and then I'll go ahead and share my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is the right move at quarterback at this juncture in the season to try to force Madison back, where, Max Cuthford just played his best game as a student athlete. Like, maybe just go ahead with the hot hand. I understand it was against Utah State, but everything in terms of pressure was on him to perform, and he balled out. So I don't love that. And then, I just think in terms of known quantities in this game, yes, UNLV's defense leaves a lot to be desired. But their run game, I think, gives them so much stability. And this is just not the Boise team of last year. It's not the Boise teams of Chris Peterson or even Brian Harsin, where they had more of an offensive identity. They had more toughness on defense. This team got bullied plenty of times this year. And I think the fact of the matter is they kind of limped and backed their way into this title game playing last year for a chance to go to the college football playoff. The juice is clearly going to be on the UNLV side. Mullen, by the way, I think has been either really savvy in terms of keeping his coaching options on the carousel under wraps, or he's staying and he's just been locked in the entire time. Either way, there's not been a media circus. There's been an opportunity to continue a 2-year run for UNLV that have just been, some of the best seasons in program history. I think they're the right side in this. I'm going to go money line on the run and Rebs. I also think the brand of football they play, if it does break into a high scoring affair, there's going to be multiple live betting opportunities if they go down by 3 or 7 in this game. If you feel a little bit of buyer's remorse, so you didn't buy them at kickoff. I think there's time to get in on UNLV here. And once again, it's going to be a pre-kick bet and a live bet opportunity for me on a dog.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if UNLV's defensive improvements we've seen over the last month are for real. They've held 3 of their last 4 opponents under 17 total points or less. Hawaii couldn't get a first down on these guys. It's going to be real interesting to see if they can get home. I think one of the things that we've seen is we've seen them play in their opponent's backfield so frequently the last month. You look at the first matchup and Sire Gaines and some of the things Boise was able to do on the ground, not getting touched until 3 or 4 yards past the line of scrimmage. I think really UNLV is going to have to step up in their run defense, forcing the ball carrier to be tackled or to at least make people miss in the backfield before getting to the second level. Those were just things that they couldn't do the first time around, but we've seen them do that over the last month. So, you look at the Paul Gunther and that defense have certainly made some adjustments in season to improve. I think that defense is significantly improved from the first meeting. I can't say the same about Boise State's. I don't know about Maddox. I don't think he's fully healthy. I don't think he'll be mobile. I think it could be real trouble here in the middle of the second quarter when he can't move around, and we might end up seeing them pull the plug and go in a different direction back to Cutforth in game. I wouldn't be surprised all about this. Boise's going to try to run the football here as well. It'll come down to if they gash UNLV on the ground, if they get the explosive runs like they did in the first meeting. I don't know. I think part of me believes this UNLV defense has improved and some of the improvements we've seen are real. And I think these guys have a lot to prove. I think they have an opportunity to go out and do it. But I mean, you look at the way that this defense has played against the opponents that they've had on their schedule the last several weeks. Really did a great job of limiting and shutting down Utah State in the second half of that game. Played Nevada really competitively. Again, Hawaii couldn't get a first down. It's an improved unit, and I think this game script will play out a little bit differently than we saw the first time around. I think people are running to the window thinking Boise State is free money here, and I don't think it's going to necessarily play out that way. So, fascinating watch on Friday night. Could be a little weather, maybe a little snow that hits the ground in Boise. But I think UNLV will have a game plan to be able to outpossess the Broncos in this one, and they should have a ton of success on the ground here.
4 conference title games down, a lot of them tight, a lot of them we like the dogs. Then we get the Sun Belt Championship where James Madison is laying a huge number north of 3 touchdowns against Troy. The total sitting at 47.5. And it's been a weird year for James Madison because they came in with the preseason hype, but their early season schedule was circled against Louisville and against Liberty. Louisville, they blew an opportunity. They had an early trick play touchdown pass that was underthrown. Then they had, some issues getting the passing game going in the second half. They lose by 2 touchdowns. Then the Liberty game ends up being meaningless because Liberty stunk this year. So they just have flown under the radar really for 3 months. And now finally people are waking up and saying, oh, if Duke wins the ACC championship and James Madison at this point is 12-1, I guess the Dukes get to be in. Yes, the Dukes do get to be in. They've won 10 straight games. And by the way, when you dig into it deeper in terms of their offensive explosion, in their last 6 games, they're averaging 48.5 points per game. And the difference is that Barnett, who came back from that gruesome leg injury, there was always some thoughts that maybe they're just going to go with the transfer quarterback who didn't get his bag at UNLV, that was coached up by Chesney at Holy Cross. Sluka is going to be our guy. Well, he was their guy for about 14 minutes of game action, and then they went to Barnett. But the thing about it is he needed to get 100% healthy to show everything that he had in his bag. His legs were so critical. You could just see it in terms of him being a rhythm passer, short arming throws in the early going in September and early October. But he has turned the corner as a passer, and you're seeing him in the run game. When he pulls it down, he's not just getting 4 or 5 yards and sliding. He's cutting, it has full range of motion, lateral agility, all of it. So with that back, and with the addition of Wayne Knight, who's just been an all-purpose monster, this offense is really dangerous, one of the best in the G5, and I can see why sportsbooks are respecting him to the degree that they're laying this big number here. And the thing of it is, just at first blush, this seems like too many points in a conference championship game. But I can't get over the fact that Troy scored 10 points against Arkansas State, who, let's do the celebration there from the kids. That defense stinks. And then Old Dominion, they got shut out. I know they had injuries. I know they had a lot to overcome in terms of game planning with different quarterbacks and having injuries along the offensive line. But I just don't see them being able to hang with James Madison if they play their best football. And why wouldn't they come with the juice here? Chesney's not been poached, an opportunity to go to the college football playoff. This has really been a program ever since they elevated from the FCS level. They've been basically yearning for national respect. First it was, it's not fair that we can't win the Sun Belt as we transition. Then it was, can we win a Sun Belt championship? Can we get to the college football playoff? It's all there for this team that I think is ascending. 23.5 is too rich for my blood in terms of a pre-kick. I'm really hoping that Troy can get an empty possession from James Madison, maybe go down and get a field goal, get this to 17 or something like that, and then I'll hop in. I think that's the right number here. My power ratings call for this to be south of 20, so 23.5, blowing past 2 key numbers there is a little too much. What are your thoughts here in the Sun Belt? And do you agree that this James Madison team is just criminally underrated in their current constitution? Give that little constitution nod to James Madison. The fact of the matter is they're just such a better team than they were on October 1st.
Yeah, and very much under the radar with the media, and really quite criminal what the College Football Playoff Committee did, ranking Tulane ahead of them and not even ranking James Madison in the first couple of sets of rankings was really disappointing. And I thought they played much better against Louisville than the final score, had the lead at half, had a chance to punch one in on the goal line late. Had a couple turnovers that were really costly in that one, but shut down everything Louisville wanted. That same Louisville team that went out and beat Miami handily, shut them down entirely for about 3.5 quarters. This one seems one-sided. JMU should win this game and should win this game with margin, but we have seen the Dukes play around at times this year, and they've found themselves in closer games than expected. Liberty, they struggled with for a half. Georgia State, they won by 7. Louisiana Lafayette gave them a game. Marshall, Wazoo, the list goes on and on. Now we get the Bob Chesney distractions. Could it spill over here? You have to assume that he's exerted some amount of his bandwidth in his new gig and has been peeking ahead to what's coming down the pipe for him with his new job. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they are fully locked in, maybe not. I wonder what this group is thinking. This James Madison defense is nasty. First nationally in defensive success rate, second in pass play success rate, eighth in preventing explosive plays. Troy is really going to be up against it offensively. But you know what? Those guys are on scholarship too over there at Troy, and we've seen them play up time and time again. They had the lead against Clemson at the half in Death Valley. They played Memphis 7-7 after Goose had gone out with injury, 7-7 at the half, and had a couple chances to put a few points on the board. Didn't come to fruition. You know what? Our darling Southern Miss, they went down there and beat those guys on the field, never trailed in the game, extended the margin in the fourth quarter. So they've played up at times when they've needed to. Two games now where Goose has looked pretty good. I mean, he did it against Southern Miss, one of the best teams in the Sun Belt Conference. We all thought it was going to be Southern Miss here, and Goose and Troy had other ideas. I agree with you that this one could possibly get ugly in the second half. James Madison has allowed a grand total of 2 points in the second half in their last couple of meetings. They just don't allow points in the second half. My power ratings cannot get to this number. My power ratings make this 19.3. We've seen very little movement outside of this move into 23 and a half. If this were to get to 24 and a half, I would take a swing with Troy here. That's my buy point. Otherwise, if we don't get the 24 and a half, I'll probably maybe consider making a live play. I think this number is overinflated. You are certainly paying a tax to play the brand and to play JMU here. They're the better team. They're the stronger team. They're going to win this game. It's just a matter of how much. I kind of feel like their chance to impress the committee and really make a statement was a couple of weeks back when they hosted Wazoo. They should have won that, or should have gone out and tried to win that game by 4 touchdowns. Instead, they were down by 10 in the fourth quarter and had to really rally and come back in order to win. So I don't know. I kind of think Troy can give them a little bit more of a fight than what everyone else is giving them credit for here. 24 and a half, I'm in on the Trojans.
All right, that'll do it for today's episode, Championship Week episode now in the books. Thank you so much for listening. You can do a couple things to support our show. First, you can go ahead and hit those quick slip links in the video and episode description to tail some of the bets that you heard here in today's episode. You can also sign up for Action Pro, which gives you real-time alerts when any of us book any of our bets. That's Colin, Stuckey, Duck, and myself getting the best bets at the best prices. Last piece, you can also throw us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the pod. We would be tickled if you did. We can go ahead and throw you some futures. This is going to continue to roll right into college basketball season. And that's the last piece of it that we want to let you guys know. As these episodes get spread out over bowl season, we're going to start peppering in more college basketball coverage, which is not just for me and Stuck and the three-man weave and Greg Waddell, but also our man Duck is going to be on board as well. And we really appreciate everyone interacting with us. We got the weekend warm-up on Friday. I'm going to talk through some of the live plays, not just for the G5 title games, but also for the Power 4 title games on Saturday. All right, that's it for the show. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.